The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. We are very honored and excited this morning to introduce Mr. Mark King, CEO of Taco Bell, formerly CEO of TaylorMade Adidas. I want to thank Tom Addis for reaching out to Mr. King and securing this interview. Mr. King, good morning. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series.
Thanks, John. It's exciting to be with everyone.
We are delighted that you're with us today. She's all yours.
Okay. Well, hey, good morning, everyone. I don't know, a few months ago, I saw Tom up at Riviera, Tom Addis, and he asked me if I would be a part of the program, and I said I would. I have a long history with Tom. I became the TaylorMade sales rep in 1981 in Southern California, and Tom was director of golf at Singing Hills, and he's been a part of my life for almost 40 years. So, and we keep bumping into each other. So let me just give you a little background on how I got here, and then I know John's got a bunch of questions for me. And if anyone else wants to send in a question that it would be interesting for you guys, I certainly would do my best to answer it. But anyway, real quickly, 2 minutes. I grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, born in 1959. I'm now 61 years old, but I was a passionate Packer fan, and my mom played golf. My dad was a high school teacher, but I fell in love with golf when I was about 10 years old, and just really got into it, even though the season's pretty short in Green Bay. But I really fell in love with the game and was good enough to get a golf scholarship to Northern Illinois University. I played there for 2 years and didn't really play very well, and then ended up transferring back to the university in Green Bay. And my plan was to get done with school and become a club professional like most of you. And that was really my dream. I was fortunate enough to work for a man in the summertime who was a golf professional, Eddie Langard, who was the pro at Oneida Country Club in Green Bay, which I'm a member at now. And then he had a golf center. Anyway, my senior year of college, he was asked by his best friend, Gary Adams, to be a part of the founding of the TaylorMade Golf Company. So he left, and he and Gary Adams started the TaylorMade Golf Company. So in 1981, when I finished with college, rather than become a club professional, Eddie asked me to be a club salesman for TaylorMade. And I was excited about it, and he gave me the opportunity to move to San Diego. So Green Bay to San Diego was a pretty exciting opportunity for me. So I came out here in 1981 and met Tom Addis, and then just so many wonderful golf professionals back in the early 80s. Tag Merritt was at I can't even think of where Tag was. It was at Rancho Santa Fe, and then Chuck Courtney took over, and Gordy Severson was my boss for a while. So all these names of golf professionals that were a part of my career, early career. And I spent 34 years at TaylorMade, 34 years, the last 14 as the CEO from 2000 to 2014. And it was an amazing time for me because I still am a passionate golfer. I love equipment. I love golf professionals. I love business. And it was just the perfect career for me. In 1999, Adidas bought the TaylorMade Golf Company, and they were the parent company for the 14 years that I was the CEO. But then in 2014, they actually asked me to run the Adidas business in North America and all of their businesses, and they own TaylorMade, Reebok, CCM, and Adidas. So I moved to Portland basically and ran all the businesses in North America till 2018. During that time, we actually ended up selling TaylorMade. And I retired in the summer of 2018, and I was really excited about playing competitive amateur golf and relaxing. And darn it, 6 to 8 months later, Taco Bell called, and which they have a parent company, which is Yum, which owns KFC and Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, and asked me if I wanted to to run the Taco Bell business, which is in Orange County, right in the center of the section here. And yeah, it was just too good to be true for me. It was new industry, new job, new challenge, and I was really excited to come out of retirement and do one more thing. So I have a TaylorMade golf experience, and then I have Adidas footwear and apparel experience, and now selling Mexican food around the world. So it's been a journey for me, a lot of learning on many different issues, and I know John's got a bunch of questions that he's going to run me through. So with that, John, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. King. Again, truly an honor for you to have made time to be with us this morning. Obviously, there's a huge following on the Catalyst this morning, and we all very excited to hear your story. Right away, what has been your biggest failure in your career and why?
Well, John, you sent me this question yesterday, and the laundry list of failures would be too big. So I'm definitely not going to go into my personal life, my failures in my personal life. So I'll just stick with my biggest failures in my business career. And I would say this. The first thing is I have a pretty unique style. You either love me or you hate me. There's not much in between, because I'm very aggressive and bold, and really have evolved into trying to disrupt businesses in order to move them forward. And when you have that kind of style, very aggressive, you do make mistakes. If I was going to compare my business style to a golf game, I would say it's probably Phil Mickelson. And there's some greatness there, but there's also some downsides because of risk taking. But it's led him to, just 44 wins and 5 majors and a lot of success. Maybe with a more conservative style, he would have had more success, but it's who he is and it's his style. And that's what I would say my style is in business. If I wanted to get really specific though, John and everyone, about my biggest failures, and I thought about this a lot, it was when we at TaylorMade acquired the Ashworth brand. I think the year was 2008, and then in 2011 or 12, we purchased the Adams Golf Company. And if I look back, I think those were 2 mistakes for me personally and the company. And the reason we bought both was real simple: to grow our business. When you run one of these big companies and you're publicly traded, which as a subsidiary of Adidas, we're a publicly traded company, you have to grow. And that's really the negative side of these big companies, is there's always pressure to grow. And as TaylorMade was getting to have these big market shares in metalwoods, irons, and some of the other categories, we thought we had to buy other companies to grow the top line. And so when we bought Ashworth and then we bought Adams, it's just very hard to acquire other companies from a focus standpoint. So it really distracted us at TaylorMade from the core business that we have. The cultures, because now you're buying companies, the cultures don't really fit very well. Management teams, priorities, and then to integrate all that is very, very difficult. And so I don't think we did a very good job, honestly, with either brand. And if you see today on the TaylorMade portfolio, they've actually sold Ashworth and they've kind of mothballed Adams, and I don't really know what the plan is currently. But I would say, John, that those were things that if I had to do over again, I definitely would not have bought Ashworth and Adams. I would have just continued to focus more on the TaylorMade brand.
Looking at that as a business maneuver regret, what was the actual result, the negative result of that?
Well, I think in the Ashworth case, I think it's different. Yeah, maybe it's the same. In the Ashworth case, when we bought the company, we had the Adidas golf apparel line, which was doing very, very well at the time, but it had performance fabrics, and Ashworth really was a cotton brand. And so we thought that they married very well together. But we also thought that we could integrate Ashworth into our headquarters in Carlsbad. And we basically shut the Ashworth business down, laid off all the employees. We laid off 90% of the employees, took 10% and integrated it in. Very unsuccessful. Plus, we ended up laying off a couple hundred people. So that was a regret. Adams was learning from that a few years later. When we bought Adams, we left it very much alone in Fort Worth in Texas, and given all of the competitiveness of the industry, Adams was not really able to make it on their own. So we shut down Adams in Texas and integrated it again back here in Carlsbad. And both ended up really stifling the business, and both businesses really started to go the wrong way, and then eventually sold them. So I think those would be the two big ones.
From a high level view, what companies are you most fond of? Do you believe who do you believe will be the most successful in the golf industry in the next few years?
Well, you'll find this hard to believe, but the company that I respect the most is Titleist. And I say that because Wally Uline, he was the CEO for I don't know how many years, but it was a lot, 40 years or something, 30 plus years. And to be able to grow your business for that extended period of time, really not making any major mistakes in the marketplace, and be very loyal to the brand, to the retail customers, the PGA golf professionals, and their loyal consumers. It's just amazing what they've done for that long period of time. That being said, I spent 34 years at TaylorMade and very proud of what we did there and being a part of that. And the golf industry today, everyone, is very different than it was when most of us started. When I met Tom Addis 40 years ago, there were a lot of little companies. It was a product company. The industry was about products and salespeople and PGA golf professionals, and there was room for having fun, and there were a lot of companies. Today, whether it's golf equipment or footwear and apparel, there's just a few brands. So we've seen a lot of consolidation. Titleist, Callaway, TaylorMade, Ping, and are the big four, and they really represent 90% of the market share. Nike, Adidas, and a few other brands do all of the apparel business. And you have Peter Millar, you have Straight Down, you have a few smaller companies, but it's just a few companies that represent the bulk of the business. And honestly, I think they all do a great job today. I think Titleist, Callaway, TaylorMade, Ping, you probably need all four of them in your shop, or at least some relationship with them. They have great products. They do great marketing. So it's a much different industry than even 20 years ago, when there were probably 25 significant equipment companies selling products. Now there's really four. So big change over the past 30 years. But as industries mature, they consolidate, and a few survive. And then the few that survive, John, really, I think in most cases do a really good job. And I think we're seeing that today.
Can you talk a little bit about the evolution of the driver in the early part of the millennium, and the introduction of the white driver, I believe 2008, 2009. Can you tell that story?
Yeah. So golf was from let's pick a number, 1950 to 1980. Golf was a very slow moving sport on the equipment side. I'm just talking about the equipment side. And you had forged irons and wood woods, and you had brands like Spalding and Hogan and Wilson, and Tommy Armour, and there wasn't really much change. And then between 1980 and 1990, you had three people that really changed the golf equipment industry: Carson Solheim, Gary Adams, and Ely Callaway. And they brought innovation into the game. And innovation is trying to improve equipment every year. And so what really started out to be a slow-moving, not a lot of technology, ended up being all about technology. And so then there's an arms race for who can introduce the next technology the fastest. And so TaylorMade in around 2000, after Callaway had an amazing run in the 90s, we got on a roll from 2000 really to 2014. And probably at the end, was launching, and I know you're probably all shaking your heads, yes, launching products at far too rapid a pace for you to carry inventory, for consumers to understand. And that, I think that would have been another mistake that I would have brought up on the first question, was, moving too fast. But really what it did was it kept people interested in buying golf clubs. And in 2011, we had 35% market share. We TaylorMade and was looking for what could we do to continue to be interesting to the consumer. And we fell upon the white driver. We launched the white driver in January of 2011, and our market share went up to 50%. It was an amazing run. But it was always in this chase of something new and different and interesting to the consumer who honestly wanted to buy something new every year. So it went from a very slow moving industry to really too fast. I was probably the main driver of that. And I think the industry really has done a much better job the last 2 or 3 years of kind of slowing it down. It still moves fast, but it's slower. And I think it's in a good balance now in terms of introduction of new products.
What advice do you have for golf professionals or business professionals to be the most competent and irreplaceable employee a company has?
Well, I think it's changed again, everyone. I think mastering your trade or your competency years ago was really what we all wanted, and it was kind of incremental improvement. And that was what we all wanted. That's what the equipment industry was. But it's also what the macro world was. Well, today we live in a world that's moving so fast and it's evolving so fast, mainly because of technologies, but also because of, social evolution right now that we're witnessing, that I think to stay relevant is the most important thing. And the only way you can stay relevant in today's world is to have curiosity and to keep learning and to keep pushing yourself to understand more things and how they go together. So I would say, the thing that we all need to do if we want to continue to have a big career or any career is to stay relevant by evolving and continuing to learn, which is why you're all on this webinar, right? It's about learning. And yeah.
What is something that PMGA does that every golf course should do, such as like a best practice?
Yeah, so I saw that question, John, and I think I'm sure most business managers do this, but if they don't, I think there's this process of creating a new business plan every year. So if you're on the calendar year, which I don't know if golf courses are or not in terms of accounting principles, but if you're on the calendar year, so at TaylorMade, we're on the calendar year, we would put a new plan together for, let's say, 2021, and we would start that planning process right about now. And it would take about 90 days to set new targets, set new goals. Then based on those goals, what are the strategies that we need to implement? And then what are the specific plans? And then setting metrics. How are you going to measure yourself during that year? And then creating a calendar of when you check in on those metrics, because if the plan is off, how do you adapt to the changing environment that you're in? So, for example, everyone had to change their plan in 2020 when COVID hit a few months ago. So everybody's plans went out the window, and we had to look at it. Now, that was a more obvious one because the market made us do that. But I think that's really the practice that all of us should be in, is planning for the upcoming year and then setting how we're going to measure that.
Why would you leave the golf industry?
Well, it's a really good question, John. And so I would say this, I've been a passionate golfer since I was 10 years old. I never thought, I actually still don't think I actually left the golf industry. So I'll say that to start with. I still have so many friends that are in golf. I went last week, I played with Scott Palua up at the Valley Club with Mike Rawley, who's the owner of Straight Down. Had an amazing experience at the Valley Club, my first time up there. I'm a member at 4 clubs around the country, so I still play a lot of golf around the country. So for me, still very, I talk to David Abley's quite often. I talk to Chip Brewer at Callaway. As a matter of fact, Chip just sent me a bunch of balls with Taco Bell logo on them. So, Chip, thank you for that. So for me, I'm still a part of golf. I'm just not on the golf business side of it. But in 2014, when I was running the TaylorMade company, the chairman of the Adidas company asked me to run all of the Adidas businesses in North America. And that included TaylorMade. So they gave me a formal board seat in 2014 on TaylorMade. So I still had some interaction with the company. But I also then oversaw the business of Reebok, CCM, the hockey company, and Adidas. And I did that thinking that I would do it for a period of time and then come back to TaylorMade in some capacity when I was done running these businesses. Well, unfortunately, we ended up selling the TaylorMade company to private equity. So there really wasn't obviously a place for me to re-enter. But golf is not a job for me. It's my life. It's my passion. I mean, my garage, I have a hitting net. I've got hundreds of golf clubs. I played yesterday with Bruce Nakamura, who's the teaching pro over at Aviera with Kip Peterball. So golf is just a part of me, and I don't think it will ever not be a part of me.
Now, you mentioned you're a member at 4 clubs. We're dying to know what 4 clubs.
Okay, well, I'm a member at Shadow Ridge, which my good friend Jimmy Letourneau was the director of golf, and now he's the GM. And it's I've been a member for 34 years, so that's really where I play most of my golf. And then when I first moved to California, my first round of golf was at Palma Valley with Gary McCord and Gordy Severson, and that was in 1981. And I've been a member there for 12 years, and I love the place. If you haven't been there, I'm sure you've heard of it. Mike Mendoza was the assistant, and he left us and went out to the desert somewhere. So, Mike, I know you're listening, so we miss you. And then my wife has gotten crazy about golf, but she wanted to join Santa Luz. So we've joined Santa Luz, which is a fabulous place. We're actually thinking of moving down there. It's so beautiful. And then I'm a member at Oneida Golf and Riding, or a golf club in Green Bay, which is where I grew up. So I try to spread my time between those places. Right now, I play golf like 5 days a week. I go out a couple nights a week and play 9 holes with my wife, and then I play Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I've still, golf is my life, which is really exciting for me. I will say this, I'll add to it though. One of the reasons that I moved on from just running TaylorMade is I had been running the company for 14 years. I thought it needed fresh eyes and to be able to do things differently, because I think when you run something for a long period of time, it's really difficult to continue to evolve and do the right thing. So it was probably time for me, not necessarily to leave golf, but to leave that job. And David Abley has done an amazing job in the last 3 or 4 years to really get it back on the right track. Great products, great marketing. But I'd like to challenge myself and push myself. And going to big Adidas was, a step up in terms of scale. When I got to Adidas, it was $1.7 billion in the U.S. That was the same size as TaylorMade. When I left 4 years later, we were $5.2 billion. So it was amazing growth. And now the Taco Bell experience for me, this is a $12 billion business. So it's big, it's challenging, and it keeps me thinking about the world. And so for me, it's about moving forward and doing new and different things. But at the core of me, John, is still golf.
Fantastic. I'm just tickled that you name dropped Mike Mendoza. Mike and I went to high school together. We were at Candlewood Country Club together and South Hills Country Club together, along with his little brother Kyle. And he's actually out in the desert with me, not with me, but he's down the road at Avondale. Yep. He's the head pro over there. So I thought that was wonderful that you just name dropped him. What are some of the similarities between the food business and the golf business?
Well, this one, I think most people, will be a little surprised. I think they're almost identical, to be honest. And I know that sounds kind of bizarre. But if you think about it, the first thing that, for me anyway, that all businesses revolve around are people. So I don't care what industry you're in. It's really about creating the right environment for people to do great work. And so whether it's TaylorMade or Adidas or Taco Bell, it's about creating the right environment and having great people. So that's the first thing. Second thing, it's a product industry. It's about food. It's not about golf clubs. It's not about athletic footwear, but it's about a product. And we have the same level of scientists that work on food that work on drivers and putters and balls. So there's a main focus on products. And then you have to build a supply chain to be able to source those products. So same mechanism basically in the golf industry. And then how do you launch those products into the marketplace? Through marketing, through the distribution network. Now there's a little difference because the Taco Bell business is either company restaurants or franchisees, but it's still basically a retail customer that you have to set up, tell your story, get the products there. And then it's about the consumer, the golfer, the customer who's going to buy and eat your product or use your product. So understanding their behaviors and how they're changing and what they're looking for. And then, when you run these companies, it's about the money. And do you make money, and how do you manage your expenses? So there's so many similarities. It's amazing. The big difference from the food industry is really the food safety issue. It's a big issue. If something goes wrong with the driver, you might slice it, you might not be able to get it airborne, but there's going to be no harm to your body with a bad driver. But if you have a food issue, a quality issue that could make people sick, it's really the thing that you focus most about that I've learned is really food safety, and it's amazing the steps that the growers and the beef suppliers, the work that they go through to make sure that food is safe for us to all eat. So but other than that, I think it's really, really very, very similar businesses.
Back over to TaylorMade a little bit. Why hasn't TaylorMade been able to make a bigger dent in the golf ball market?
Yeah, it's a great question. But I would start by John and everyone saying TaylorMade has great golf balls. I mean, I don't know what number they are in professional golf, but they're either 2 or 3 behind Titleist. So they, the TP5 and the TP5X and the other balls they have are really they're great performing products. So I would say that really the company's done a great job. Was not in the golf ball business until 2002 when we bought the MaxFly business, which gave us a lot of intellectual property to be able to develop the balls that you use today. So one, I think that they've done a better job, and I think today their market share is around 10%. The second reason or why it's been difficult for them is the greatness of Titleist. I mean, it's at the core of their DNA. It's what they know. It's what they do. They've been so good for so long. And because of the limitations on golf balls, it's really hard. You can't really find a ball that's better than Titleist. You can find one that's equal to Titleist, but if it's not going to be better, why would you change? And they stay so relevant with the best players in the world, club professionals, top amateurs, that it's really the aspirational brand. So I think the greatness of Titleist, and then maybe the reason for specifically TaylorMade has been just priorities. If you think about how big the metalwood market is and how big the iron market and how big the putter, I mean, those are big categories. And you could ask the same question of Titleist. Why haven't they done better in equipment? Well, because it's not been a priority for them. They have great equipment. They have a nice market share, but they haven't really tried to grow their club business the same way TaylorMade hasn't really aggressively tried to grow their ball business. They want to grow it, but it's very difficult. The other thing that you find when you're inside of these companies is there's a DNA, kind of the makeup of the company. And the makeup of TaylorMade all the way back to Gary Adams it's a metalwood company. That's what it is, first and foremost. They've done a great job of building their iron business and now expanding their putter business and ball business. But the DNA of TaylorMade, first and foremost, is ball, the way the DNA of Titleist, is club, driver, and the way DNA of Titleist is the golf ball. So I think it's those reasons, but they are definitely creeping in. They're doing a really great job. I think Ricky Fowler and and what they've done with the little designs on the ball is pretty interesting. I think Callaway has done a really great job with their ball business, but they've made a priority now for 15 years to be able to get whatever their market share is. So it's a tough business because really of the greatness of Titleist.
That's true. That's really true. With food and beverage, so many of us on the call today are golf professionals. We oversee food and beverage at our facilities, and menu mix and generation is something with which we work regularly. What are the key drivers that you utilize in changing menu items?
Honestly, John, it's a pretty complex answer. So I'm going to try to do my best. So the things that go into the menu, and I'm just going to speak specifically about Taco Bell, and maybe some of this is relevant to your food and beverage challenges. But the first thing is, what do the customers want? So that's kind of priority number one. Priority number two is then, how do you make that? How are you able to make those products in the moment? And so for us at Taco Bell, you really get into the complexity of what we call the back of restaurant, which is where you're making the food, because all of Taco Bell food is made to order, just like it is in your restaurant. McDonald's has stacks of fish fillet and Big Macs, and they have a little different process. When everything is made to order, it's really about labor, it's about speed, and it's about margin. And so all of those things go into, so you could have a great product idea, but if it takes too long to make it, no good. If it doesn't make any money, if the margin isn't good enough, doesn't really pay to launch it. And then the third thing or fourth thing, whatever number I'm on the menu at Taco Bell, is the consumer really needs and wants newness. And that's why you see all these LTOs, limited time offerings. So every 5, 6, 7 weeks, there's a new product, because there's two types of consumers at Taco Bell. One that gets the same thing every time, and one that gets something new and different every time. And so you've got to be able to satisfy the person like myself who gets the bean and cheese burrito almost every time, and then somebody who wants a crunch wrap, a DLT. And so you'll see these, what we call experiences, that last 5 or 6 weeks that have different products. So the menu really consists of those two things. But the menu itself really is about complexity, because the more complex the menu is, the more ingredients, the more education and training you need for the people that are making the food. So it's a pretty, when I got to Taco Bell, we had 137 different items on the menu, and we're now down to 80. And we've eliminated 11 ingredients. And so as the scale goes up, so let me give you an example, some numbers. We do 500 transactions a day. And so when you're doing 500 transactions a day, you've got to move through and be able to make food pretty quickly. And then you've got to inventory all of that food. So it's a complex question, and I hope that there's something in there that would help the guys running food and beverage.
Good. That just generated two questions here, and this is a funny one. And actually, I'm really quite surprised that you and your assistant Britt allowed this question to make it onto the list. Here it comes. Why on earth is the Cool Ranch Doritos Locos taco gone from the menu, and who was responsible for that?
Well, first of all, it's not gone. So that's that. It's not gone. Here's the strategy with a product like that. A couple times a year it will be offered, because it's so unique and different, and there's such a cult following. But if you had it every day, it would kind of lose its cult following, and it would lose its kind of appeal. So the DLT will be launched several different times during the year. During COVID, one of the things that we did, and you're probably aware of this, in the month of April on Taco Tuesday, we gave away a free DLT to anybody who came in. And you didn't actually even have to buy anything else. You could just come in and say, give me my Doritos Locos taco, and you would get it. So the good news, John, is it's not going away, and whoever would have made that decision probably would have been fired, including myself. So it's here to stay.
Now, the other question that the previous kind of opened up for me, when you talk about the importance of culture and leadership, and in terms of your frontline employees, can you talk a little bit about the similarities of inspiring and motivating the team at TaylorMade and how that changes, how that's evolved to the team, the service team at Taco Bell?
Well, honestly, John, I don't really think it's any different. Obviously, the execution, when you get to the frontline workers in the restaurant, you have a lot of minimum wage workers, a lot of part-time workers, and it's very transient because, you know, there's a lot of young kids looking for, like my stepdaughter just took a job at an ice cream place, but it's only for the summer. So we get a lot of that. One of the things that we're trying to do at Taco Bell is really provide a longer term career so that you could come in, work the front line, become a store manager, and actually have a full career. So we're looking at pay grades and benefits and things that would make it really more attractive to make Taco Bell a career choice, not just a short-term job. But in terms of leadership, people want to be a part, whether it's Taco Bell, TaylorMade, or your golf shop. All employees want to be a part of something that's kind of cool and special and unique and part of something that wants to do something good. And so I think having a goal, having an aspiration for giving something back to the community, providing a great career opportunity, or making, you know, just the world a better place, I think that's important to inspire employees to want to be a part of your company. I think the second thing, John, is you got to give employees today a voice, not just direction, not just a job, but you got to give them a voice in how you go forward and how you create the right experience for your customers. So I think a big part of leading today is giving all employees a voice and influence. I think recognition is really one of the biggest things for making people want to come to work, just knowing employees' names and recognizing them, and especially when they do a good job or just actually for the effort. So those things, John, are the same whether it's Taco Bell, TaylorMade, or any golf shop that's out there listening.
And that resonates with some of the other company leaders that have been on the Catalyst. They talk about giving the employees a voice and really taking a vested interest in the growth of the employees and how that's so relevant and significant now versus where it was in the past. I think that's amazing that you touched on that as well. Where is your team drawing inspiration from for the new menu items?
Well, it's pretty interesting. We have it's very similar to TaylorMade. We have an event once a quarter called Think Moss, Think More, and we had one last Monday, just a few days ago. And all of the food scientists, if you will, are always innovating new food. I'll get to where they get their inspiration from. But I started the job at 170 pounds. I now weigh 182. So all we do is, you know, it was a lot better walking out to the Kingdom to hit a few wedges than it is to walk down to the kitchen and have a grilled cheese burrito. It hasn't been good for my waistline. But that being said, the inspiration comes from a lot of different places. So we actually have, believe it or not, there's a thing called a food scientist that understands ingredients, how they mix, flavors, sauces. We work with our vendors. So there's people that actually grow the produce or have beef plants or whatever. The Pepsi, we work with Pepsi a lot on drinks. So there's a lot of collaboration between our food scientists and our partners. So that's one source. There's a bunch of product marketers, just like there is in golf, that's out in the marketplace talking to customers. What do they like? What do they don't like? What are competitors doing? What are trends? So we have mechanisms to be able to get input. And then you just have a group of people that are always looking at and experimenting with making new products. And you just saw one, if you're a Taco Bell fan, just launched one, the grilled cheese burrito, which is this massive burrito with now melted cheese just what you needed was melted cheese on the outside, not only cheese on the inside. But so you've just got a group of people that are passionate about food, just the way Sean Toulon, for all those years that he and I worked together at TaylorMade, and Benoit Vincent were passionate about making great golf clubs. You've got food scientists passionate about making great food.
How easy or difficult is it to avoid the pitfall of, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, when it comes to making brand changes?
I think it's the biggest watch out for all business leaders is this saying that, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think there was a point in time, I don't know when, but 20 years ago, when that was probably a very reliable strategy. Like once you have something that works, don't screw around with it. But I think in today's world, because of how fast it's moving, because of the impact of technology, because of the demographics are changing in terms of who's spending money, I think you have to do two things. You have to be trying to get better at what you do today while looking for what's the next model, what's the next change. Because if you get caught behind on that change, it could really be painful. I'll give you an example, and I think Palma Valley Country Club is a really good example. I started playing golf there in the early 80s, and it was run basically by a group of people called the Farmers, and because you got a lot of avocado farmers out in that area. And it was such a unique and special place, but they didn't want it to change. They didn't want it to evolve, and so they were very protective of what they wanted. And what happened was no new members. And I joined there in 2008, and 2 years ago, the Palma Valley sold because it was, it wasn't really, there was a chance that there would be no Palma Valley. New ownership comes in, they look at the membership, they now own the club, so they're not really having to do only what this small group of members wanted, and we've added 150 members or something. It's a crazy amount in the last year. And what was a sleepy little place is now active, and a lot of changes to the place. I'm sure the Farmers don't like the change, but it was what was necessary to make Palma Valley as a thriving business entity work. And so I think it's a really good example of you have to push yourself to be able to evolve. You don't have to change radically, but you have to evolve. And I think it's hard because most of us seek comfort in what's familiar. And so to always be in this state of what's next is not very comfortable, but I actually think it's what's required if you want your businesses or your leadership to be relevant going forward. It's really about evolving and evolving at the same pace as your customer.
You touched on it a little bit earlier, but just a little more specifically, can you talk about your day-to-day routine with Taco Bell now?
Yeah, well, there's 6 areas that, as the leader of a company, for me, are really important. People, product, marketing, the customer, the supply chain to be able to provide the product, and the money. And so honestly, I have a philosophy that I've kind of learned over time, which is focus your time on what matters most. Because I think if you're a golf professional, and I've spent most of my life with golf professionals, most of my friends are golf professionals, the amount of things that you are challenged to be involved with are monumental. From merchandising to lessons, to tea times, to events, to the board of directors or your boss or a member. I mean, it's just endless how many things you can do with your time in a day. And I think we all have to just identify within our scope of responsibility what matters most. And for me, it's people. So I spend a portion of every day thinking about the people that report to me, thinking about the organization, thinking about the challenges we have, and never being too far away from the pulse of the people. We're a product company, so we need fresh new products in development all the time. So we have product meetings every week to talk about what's new and different. the products, aren't going to sell themselves. So we have to have marketing plans that support those. We've got to be in contact with our retail customer, which in our case is the franchisee. So I talk to franchisees every single day. We have a supply chain company that orders all the food and gets it into the hands of the restaurants, and then the managing of the P&L, the money, and the balance sheet. So those are the 6 things, John, and everyone, that are most important to me. And I just construct my day-to-day with between one-on-ones with my direct reports, group meetings with each one of those 6 areas to stay really on top of those. And it's a very, hands-on. In today's world, you need to be engaged day to day in what happens. And as soon as you're not, you fall behind. And it's very intense. It requires a lot of mental energy and effort. And that's what I do.
Okay, now the fun stuff.
All right.
If you could play golf with any TaylorMade staffer on tour for casual fun, who would you choose?
Oh my God. Well, I would say Sergio Garcia, although he's not there any longer. So I guess I can't pick Sergio, but I would pick Jason Day. I say that only because when he was a young kid, he came here from Australia. We signed him, and I played with him the first couple of months, and he spent time in California, and we got him up and running, and he's still a friend today. So I would say Jason Day.
Now, in terms of signing talent when you were with TaylorMade, can you talk about the role that you played in that and what inspired the directions that you took?
Well, when I became the president and CEO around 2000, one of the things that we said was we TaylorMade had lost our way in the 90s and really had gotten disconnected from the game of golf and really the principles of Gary Adams. And he always said, we want to build a company by golfers for golfers. And we really got away from that. We weren't as connected to the PGA golf professional. We didn't have a big staff on tour. And so the first thing that we said was we have to have the best players in the world, and we have to have the best club professionals in the world supporting and playing our brand and our products. And so that was our strategy. And we went after everyone that we could. So between 2000 and 2010, we went from having really no PGA staff program to probably the second biggest behind Titleist, with some of the, the most influential club professionals, including your man, Tom Addis. And I don't know, Tom, what you play today, but for many of those years, you were always a great supporter of me and the TaylorMade brand. And then you look at past presidents of the PGA like Pat Riley and Dick Smith, and those guys were just such great supporters of the company. And then we went out and got or tour professionals. We signed Sergio, and then Jason Day, and then Dustin Johnson, and Justin Rose, and we went on and on. Natalie Galvis, Paula Kramer. And so it was really important that we had the best players in the world making a statement about this is great product, and it's a great company, and it's a great brand.
Okay. Now, the remaining time that we have, we want to thank Robin Shelton for bringing this exercise to us. It's an either-or Q&A for fun, but
okay.
Would you rather hole out from the fairway twice a year, every year for the rest of your life, or make a hole-in-one on any hole of your choosing?
First one.
Okay. Would you rather play at Cypress Point or Augusta National, and why?
Augusta National, I shoot lower scores, and they have forward tees now that are about 6,000 yards.
Now, would you rather be the chairman of Augusta National or be the president of the United States?
Oh, I don't want to be the president of the United States, so I'll take chairman of Augusta National.
Win the U.S. Open or the California Lottery?
I'll take the lottery. I can buy a trophy.
Okay. During a round of golf, to not 3-putt, or to hit 12 of 14 fairways?
To not 3-putt.
Oh, okay. So, okay, I just want to kind of ruin this one. Would you rather have the putter yips or the driver yips, if you had to have one of them?
Oh my God. I got to go driver yips because I have the putter yips, and it's not fun. It's not fun.
Maddening. It's enough to make you cry. Okay. Yep. Be the guest on a fireside with Phil Mickelson or the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon?
I'll take Phil Mickelson fireside. I think he's the funniest man in golf.
I love two references to him during this hour. So, all right. Play golf with Arnold Palmer, Ben Hogan, and Bobby Jones, or George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and JFK?
I'll take the first group.
Yeah, okay. Everyone always does. I don't think the latter. I don't know what kind of ball.
Well, I'm not sure they played golf, so that wouldn't have been much fun anyway.
Play golf in the rain without your rain gear with an umbrella, or play golf in the rain without your umbrella with rain gear?
Rain gear, no umbrella.
All right, and the final one here. Be a Ryder Cup captain one time and lose, or be a President's Cup captain and win?
Ryder Cup captain and lose.
Wow. Why?
Well, I just think it's, I mean, beyond the major tournaments, it's the, it may just even be a more significant event than any of the majors. One of my dearest friends is Paul McGinley, and he had the chance, you know, a few years ago, to be the Ryder Cup captain for Europe, and they won. And it's just the most amazing event. And I've had the privilege to be at a couple of them, walking the ropes on a few occasions, and there's nothing like it in golf for me. It's just electric.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. King, for your time this morning. It's been electric. It's been truly amazing to have you on. And it's becoming kind of a tradition here at the end of the Catalyst. Andy Tooney throws in one question. You know Andy Tooney, long time.
I know Andy. Andy, if you're listening, hello out there.
Yeah, Andy's got a question. He wanted to know if you remembered playing in the TV championships and being interviewed by him way back when.
Of course I do. I played with my wife and Jimmy Letourneau. Yes, I do. I remember it well.
We had Gary McCord on a couple of weeks ago, and then Andy had a question that came in at the end, and Gary just basically tore Andy a new one. It was awesome.
Well, he's unemployed now, so he can say whatever he wants. I still have to be respectful, and I love Andy. So, and I'm sure Gary does too.
Everybody loves Andy. In fact, Andy's going to be the presenter here on the Catalyst in the next couple of weeks on the history of the game. We're all looking forward to tremendously. Awesome. But again, Mr. King, thank you so much for your time this morning. We're very, very grateful that you set aside some time to be candid with us on the Catalyst webinar. We are forever grateful. For the attendees, all the PGA members that are on this morning's webcast, there is no longer a quiz requirement for the attendees that are on the live call. We will be uploading the recording of this morning's Catalyst to the SCPGA Catalyst landing page for those that want to seek it out after the fact. There will be a quiz for the MSR requirement, but for everybody that's on the live webcast this morning, you get one MSR credit for being on the live webcast. Thank you, everybody, for supporting the Catalyst. And Mr. King, thank you very much for supporting the Catalyst as well. And Mr. Addis, thank you very much for bringing Mark King to us this morning. We are very, very grateful. And again, thank you, everybody. Mr. King, have a great day, sir. Everybody on the call, have a great day and stay safe out there. Stay sane. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.